Hello, chat. Today I'd like to show off a little thing that I've been working on that I call Hearsay. And to show you what this is all about, what I'm going to try to do is go through the introductory React tutorial, which is making a game of Tic-Tac-Toe. So the first step here is to simply make a component that will represent the squares of the Tic-Tac-Toe game. And in Hearsay, components are made simply by creating HTML files that have the code that you want to be in your component to begin with, as a simple example. So right now, we started with a square component, and now the next step is to create a board component that's going to hold all of the squares. In React, they have one giant CSS file that's holding everything. And in Hearsay elements, because they're simply custom web um, elements, they're designed so that you can put CSS in with each component. Right now what I'm doing is I'm copying over code from the React tutorial, and currently I've forgotten that in this case the attribute needs to be simply class, not class name. So there, I'm fixing it. And now we've got the right styling going on. And we're going to number all our squares. And now we're going to start doing something more React-like, which is we're going to try to pass the information down through props instead of specifying it. So here my board started out with just buttons, and now I'm replacing each of the buttons with a instance of the square component, and I'm also passing in some props to the square component. So now I'm using this other special custom element. So there's two provided by Hearsay. One is the Hearsay element itself, and the other is the JS element, J-S, which is used to include basically inline JavaScript. And at this point things are going well, so we're going to work on some interactivity, starting with just logging something to the console when a button is clicked. Now we're actually going to try to change the data being passed down to the component from the board component. And what I'm doing here is I'm updating the state in the parent component, and then I'm telling the child component to refresh. And still figuring out how I have to do that, which is I have to call the refresh callback. And everything is working so far, I believe. Just looking through the tutorial to see what they're doing next. Doing things basically in the same order, but there are slight differences. So here I'm adding an init method to the board component, and I'm starting out by just having the board's props be set to an empty array. So in other words, the props are going to hold the board state. And at this point, it shouldn't work. And I'm a little bit confused because I can still click and get the X's. There. I think I just needed to refresh again, and now it's in kind of an in-between state where it's displaying its component or rather it's displaying its props. And now when you click it, it's going to broadcast a message that will be intercepted or received by the board. So now I need to create the react method. Oh, there's one other thing. I'm going to add a key to each of the square components, and that's going to allow me to easily, when I broadcast the message, include in the message which square I want to, affect. You may have just noticed I typed a spread here for the arguments inside an arrow function, which it turns out you cannot do, and that's going to bite me and cause a problem in a minute, but we'll deal with that once I realize. Now when I click here in a moment, you'll see it shows an object string. That turns out to be a bug in Hearsay, which I had to fix. And I magically fix it, and there, now it's working. Huzzah! Alright. Next, I'm going to add just a little bit of code so that once a square has been clicked on, you can't click on it again. It won't do anything. And now I'm copying over the calculate winner method, and I'm just going to include it here in my setup, which is going to copy it into the component. So calculate winner is going to be a method of my component here, which I can access through the self parameter. And just to try this out at first, I'm going to change it up slightly and just use an alert. And there it is, winner X. All right. Now that I see that it basically works, I'm going to go and I'm going to try to copy this over a little bit more directly. So now we have a status element inside our board component, and this is going to just display whatever we have here. So I add status as a property on props, and I'm also going to then change it so that instead of just representing the board like it did before, now props has two properties, board and status. So props.board is the board, and props.status is the status. And here we use a JS component to display that. I'm just updating it in a few places so that it will look inside the board property instead of just looking at props directly. This is, I think, the last place I need to update that. And having some issue here. There we go. All right. Now, the final part of the tutorial is implementing what they call time travel. In other words, being able to jump back to any previous turn in the game. So after getting a sense of what's going on in the tutorial, I'm just going to take a stab at this here. So I'm adding a history array to the component state. And this is just going to, every time a move is made, the current state of the board is going to get copied into the history array. Just a second ago there, I forgot to add dot board, I think, or something. Anyway, I'll fix it in just a moment. But first, I've created this Hearsay map. So this is a special Hearsay component, and you specify an array in the props, and then it will create, much like how you can map in React, here you can use the map or multiplier component, and in this case it is displaying each turn. So at first I wasn't differentiating. There was only one message, so I wasn't paying attention to what it is. Now there's two messages. Set to click on one of the squares, and jump to jump back to a different point in the history. And when you jump back, it will shorten the history to wherever you are. Now instead of showing the history itself, I just want a button that says go to this turn. When you click on it, it will broadcast the jump message. It's sending some data in the recipient, which is what turn to jump to. Now something is not quite right here. There's some logic that's not quite working. And part of it is that I had the history was being shortened too much. And then the other problem was just that there are some other things that need to be taken into account, like whose turn it is at any one time. And having taken all that into account, oh, yes, I also had a situation where I wasn't duplicating an array. I was simply using a reference to it, and that was causing issues. But there you go. Now it's all good. Thanks for watching, and feel free to leave any comments.